And speaking of seeds, you just said, are the seeds of change already being there? You were interested in politics from a very early age, weren't you?
Yes, my best friend growing up, her mother became the mayor of our town when I was in 8th grade. So I started knocking doors then. And I could see, this was a thing to do. But I think also as a midwife, and I always have had a career that kind of challenged the status quo, and I liked that. And I was very involved in feminist politics during college. And it all just kind of fit. And when I was a midwife, I worked on the movement for midwives to be able to do abortions. And so abortion access became a huge passion of mine. And when Trump was elected, I was like, there goes the court. It was really hard as a provider to see that. But yeah, I had always thought that's sort of part of my life, to help who we elect.
And one more question before we move on. How did and does your long career as a nurse midwife inform what you do? I mean, you worked in emergency settings. Yeah. So that must set you up pretty well for political organizing and working with you've seen a lot already.
Well, yes, but I think the kind of equanimity that you need as a midwife helps in the political world that is constantly trying to roil you back and forth. And so I have had that even keel. And, when people call me really alarmed about what's going on, I think, like, is anyone trying to bleed to death on you? Because if they're not, it's all right.
But you said even in the Red Book that watching a woman that you've learned so much from watching the strength of women give birth.
Yeah, I think the coaching that somebody does, the word midwife actually just means with woman, from the German. And so you're being with somebody as they do something that is challenging, hard. Most of the time they believe they can't do it. At a certain point in the middle, they all think they can't go any farther, but I know that they all can. And so I know this might sound crazy, but talking people into being political activists is very similar. You have that was not meant to be a joke. No, I think that there's a path for everybody, and there's a way to have impact for everybody. And just as I individualize the care and the experience for any woman whose birth I've attended, it's very similar. Like, I'm convinced any one of you in this room, if you want to make a difference in the next election, that I can find something for you to do with your talents and your abilities. And so, on we go.
Thank you. Janet, talk about some of the very real challenges that you faced making this very different transition from being in an emergency room setting to, well, it's a different kind of an emergency room, but it is a change for your body as well.
Yeah, I think that was one of the biggest changes, was just sitting at a desk all day, which I have never had a desk job. I've always been, when you work in a hospital, you're just up and moving all day long. And I think also I worked shifts. And when I left, I left. You can't really do midwifery from your desk. So I could just totally leave it. And now this job could fill, everything. It could take over. And so I've really had to learn how to say, you know what, 40 hours a week is enough to devote to this. Lisa said to me some point early in our partnership, she said, we really need to take at least one weekend day off, like the Sabbath. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna really try. But it was a real effort. Can I just pick up on something
Sure.
Paul was saying?
Absolutely.
About listening. I have these theories about how these changes in your life happen. For me, it hasn't been actually from like an intention, but it's been this combination of knowing myself enough and listening well enough so that when the opportunity came, I could recognize it. And that was definitely true about midwifery. I mean, when I took that class with Ruth Hubbard, it was the fall of senior year. I had no idea what I was going to do. I probably would have gone to law school, like most of us who had no idea what they wanted to do did. But when I had nothing about midwifery at all, but I was like, oh, that's it. That fits, like all these things that are right. And then the other thing is that the more you can listen to like what's out there in the world, there are all these opportunities and they will present, but sometimes we're so distracted by everything else that's going on. And I'll just say one more thing, which is I actually think one of the things that makes people the happiest is when how you think your life should be, like what you really, really value, how closely it matches how you're spending your life. And so the more you can get those two things in harmony, at least the better chance you have of being happy. And I've been really lucky to have work that I just really care about. And so it's easy.
Fabulous.